Hi, I'm Susan Camel, and I'm the publisher of the Random House imprint here. And I just want to thank you, Will, for that incredibly inspiring opening. And I'll bet you that we all had a Miss Locke in our lives, and that's why we're all here. So we're the lucky ones. So I'm here to introduce Hannah Tinti. I've been Hannah's publisher since her first book, the story collection Animal Crackers. I know that Hannah's name is familiar to many of you in the library community because you so embraced her first novel, The Good Thief, which was the winner of an ALA Alex Award. It was also winner of the Center for the First Fiction Novel Prize and a New York Times Notable Book of the Year. When the novel was published in 2008, Junot Diaz called Hannah a 21st century Robert Louis Stevenson, which to my mind was a perfect description. We're very patient people at Random House, and we've been waiting patiently for Hannah's second novel. We knew it would be special, of course, because it was written by Hannah, but nothing prepared me for the epic sweep and the propulsive drive of the 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley. Quote, "It's one part Quentin Tarantino, one part Scheherazade, and 12 parts wild innovation. Hannah Tinti proves herself to be an old-fashioned storyteller of the highest order," end quote. That's what Ann Patchett said about the book, and Richard Russo has said, quote, "It's a riveting, character-driven thriller and a father-daughter road trip you won't soon forget." Hannah will tell you more about the book, of course, but I will just say that it's one of the most suspenseful and ultimately one of the most life-affirming novels I've ever read. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce you to Hannah.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Susan. And I feel so lucky that it's rare in the business to stay with one editor for your whole career. And I've published 3 books now with Susan, and just being here and being a part of the Penguin Random House family, it really feels like a family. I thank all of you for all your work. I feel so lucky to be working with you. So as an editor, I'm used to promoting other people's writing, so it feels a little strange and pretty humbling to be here talking about my own novel, especially one that took so very long to write, as Susan said. Many struggles, false starts, hundreds of pages shoved into a drawer that no one will never see. Anyway, by the time the 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley comes out next March, it will be 9 years since I published a book. I've got a lot riding on this lunch, so I'm pretty nervous, and I hope you won't mind for the next few minutes. I'm going to pretend that you are all my mom. My mother was a librarian at Brookline Public Library in Massachusetts, so I grew up in the stacks. You know how sometimes as a treat a family will eat dinner in front of the TV? In our house, one special night a week, we were all allowed to bring a book to the table and read while we ate. My mom taught me that you can feel rich, even if you don't have any money, walking out of a library with a stash of books in your arms. And she also taught me that sometimes the right book, read at just the right time, can not only change your life, it can save your life. The 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley is a father-daughter story that explores what it means to be a hero and the cost that we pay to protect the people that we love most. The novel begins when Samuel Hawley and his daughter Lou moved to Olympus, Massachusetts, the fishing village where Hawley's late wife was born. And as these two misfits settle into their new hometown, Lou begins to uncover secrets about her father and the truth about her mother's mysterious death. The idea of this novel began with something called the Greasy Pole, which is a real contest that takes place each summer in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Has anyone here ever been? There you go. All right. So I'll describe it for the rest of you here. Okay, it takes place during the celebration of St. Peter, who's the patron saint of fishermen. A 45-foot pole is attached to a pier, set over the water, and covered with grease and lard. A flag is nailed to the end. The first fisherman who manages to walk the pole and reach the flag without falling off wins. I grew up nearby, and I still go to the Greasy Pole every summer. These drunken, modern-day gladiators captured my imagination, so I sketched out a scene. And I started by describing the festival and the boats, and then I zeroed in on one man who was about to step onto the Greasy Pole. Why was he competing in this crazy contest? I looked around on the beach for answers and added details about the crowd gathered to watch. And then I noticed one person who wasn't watching. It was a girl, and she was stacking stones, one on top of the other, along the shore. And before long, I realized this girl was the man's daughter, and that he was trying to win the Greasy Pole because of her. I'm going to read a brief paragraph of that scene now, just as Hawley takes off his shirt. Across his body were rounded scars, bullet holes, healed over. One hole in his back, a second through his chest, a third near his stomach, a fourth in his left shoulder, another through his left foot. The scars were dark and puckered in places, as if the bullets that had entered Samuel Hawley had eaten their way through his flesh. A breeze came, and the flag at the end of the pole fluttered, and the town stared while Hawley crouched and rolled his pant legs, revealing 2 more scarred holes, one in each leg. There was a collective breath, and then the crowd began to murmur. The only person who did not respond was his daughter, still piling rocks by the shore. The marks on her father's body had always been there. He did not show them off to Lou, but he did not hide them either. They reminded her of the craters on the moon that she studied at night with her telescope, circles made from comets and asteroids that slammed into the cold, hard rock because it had no protective atmosphere to burn them up. Like those craters, Hawley's scars were signs of previous damage that had impacted his life long before she was born. And like the moon, Hawley was always circling between Lou and the rest of the universe, reflecting light at times, but only in slivers. And then, every 30 days or so, becoming the fullest and brightest object in the sky, as he did now, when he finished rolling up his jeans, stood at the edge of the pier, raked his fingers through his beard, stepped onto the Greasy Pole, and started to dance. Samuel Hawley's scars became a map of the book I was going to write. Each of the holes was a secret that his daughter was going to try and uncover, and he was going to try to keep from her, and that was going to be my story. Samuel Hawley puts his own body between his daughter and the world. He uses it to protect her. And after I wrote this scene, I started thinking about heroes and all the terrible things they must do to accomplish their goals. I went to my bookshelf and pulled down a copy of the Greek myths. Inspired by the structure of the myth of Hercules, another legendary but flawed man, I decided to translate the 12 labors into the 12 lives of Samuel Hawley. I began writing short pieces, skipping through this man's criminal past, each story revealing one moment where he'd found a way to keep living, starting when he was 16 and ending when he was nearly 50. And as I began to unspool Hawley's mythic adventures, the novel became more exciting, but also more complicated. The number 12 also set an interesting challenge for me as a writer. How could I make a man get shot 12 times and the reader know that he is going to get shot and still make each way feel entirely unique and surprising? Soon my walls were pinned with photographs, index cards, scribbled notes, string. You know in the movies where they find the lair of the serial killer? That's what my apartment looked like. Luckily, my day job is being an editor at One Story magazine that I co-founded 14 years ago, and I actually brought copies for you guys, for people who come to visit me after this talk. Anyway, I realized that I pulled some of my own editor's advice out of my toolkit, that nearly all problems can be solved with a good setting. So I placed each of Hawley's chapters in a different part of America where I had traveled to or lived. The San Juan Islands, Childs Glacier in Alaska, the lakes of Wisconsin, a prairie dog town in Wyoming, the great camps of the Adirondacks, and the endless desert of the Four Corners. On this wild road trip, I fell hard for Samuel Hawley, who, despite all his flaws, is driven by the need to cure his own loneliness. He's on a desperate search for love. The other half of this novel belongs to that girl on the beach, Hawley's daughter, Lou, who was inspired by one of my absolute favorite characters in literature, Jane Eyre. Lou is stubborn and defiant and has spent her own life on the road. In each of her chapters, she learns something new. She has her first fight, her first drink, her first job, her first heartbreak, and she also commits her first crime. The 12 Lives of Samuel Hawley is told in pendulum sweeps of time, back and forth between father and daughter until the past and the present collide, and Lou takes Hawley's place as the reluctant hero. And while this is a novel about all the many losses we must face as we travel through the years, it's also about how we push back against that pulling tide, how strength comes from being vulnerable, and how we find love by leaving our own hearts open and undefended. Thank you so much.